Anybody familiar with Windows IIS?
It's not. It should be, but
Absolutely.
yes.
I'd rather not admit it.
It's not called Windows IIS.
So
I know how to restart.
It's just IIS.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
IIS.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's Microsoft IIS.
Okay.
It's the server.
Internet Information Server.
Okay. Good.
Don't say that.
But see, that's the thing. I don't know. And then I get an open job description and it says Windows IIS, and I'm like, right, it's Windows
I think
IIS.
it's Windows, comma,
Yeah,
IIS.
just left out a comma makes me sound like an idiot.
Well, just tell them to install Apache on top of Windows and I'll be fine.
So
Oh, don't that. We'll teach you how to
okay,
use a
so
Docker container.
this same position, they're doing Tomcat on Windows.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what they're. Then they need someone that knows IIS. So it's like kind of
Tomcat's
unique.
Java
that's
too.
probably
So
because
that's
they're
like the worst of every world
Yeah.
in one.
It's a very unique position. So
It's good language. Good. Got it.
Oh, man, I got to stop that.
You can automate a lot of IS with PowerShell or app command.
so right now that the environment's like Bash, it's Bash and Python, I think, but then they're moving to PowerShell. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I was told.
Snowbird just sent out a tweet today talking about Python's security problem versus PowerShell. Just kind of talking something like that.
Cool. Is it like pretty similar or one's?
Python has some directions to go versus it's basically talking about benefits of PowerShell.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the problem with Python is it's stagnated. There's two versions of it. People don't want to jump because they want everything to work without having to rewrite it.
So I did start this on air
Yeah,
broadcast. by
I can
chance.
see it right
Oh,
now.
we're live.
Yeah, we're live. We've been live for a while since you started asking about IIS.
Cool. I'm glad that's on there.
Yeah.
Windows.
So welcome everybody to Arizona PowerShell for what month is this? This is July.
Are we sure?
I think so. Yeah, July 10th. Last week was July 4th.
I got wet, so I guess so, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just remembered something. Okay.
All right. So with that, I'd like to turn over the floor to our sponsor, Nick Aldini from Tech Systems.
Thank you so much, Tom. Actually going to be giving a talk today about Windows IIS.
Nice.
Thank you. Cool. So Tech Systems, I know a lot of familiar faces in here, a couple new ones. But yeah, we can help you updating your resume. We're very in touch with a lot of open positions in your local market, 100 offices across the nation. So even if you got buddies, across the way, looking for positions or looking for help or anything at all, send them our way. We'd love to help them out. Got a stack of business cards on the end of the table, so feel free to grab those, take a picture, pass it around, post it on Twitter, whatever. Say this guy likes Windows IIS. But yeah, looking forward to the talk tonight. Looking forward to next month and many months to come. So I'll let you guys have at it and close the door behind me.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Well, in lieu of somebody remote, I'm the speaker for this evening, and I'm going to be talking to you about some of the scripting I've been able to do for System Center Configuration Manager. By the way, my name's Thom Schumacher. I presently am a contractor for a company in Texas by the name of ERCOT. They provide all the power for the state of Texas. And so I commute from here to there about once a quarter for about 2 weeks, and then I work remotely most of the time. And what I do there is I'm kind of a DevOps infrastructure guy there, which I've never been an infrastructure guy in a very, very long time. I've always been supporting .NET developers for a long time. My last position was with Pulte Homes.
Okay.
So I'm sure seeing your shirt that you know who Pulte is. Okay, so with that, what I'd like to do is, I guess I need a screen share, don't I? Okay.
Huh?
What logo is on here?
Oh, okay, Atlantic Home.
Oh, okay.
So home builder.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Pulte too.
Echo.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been working on home building industry for quite a while. Lennar, currently with Lennar.
Okay.
But Ryland.
I couldn't connect to Wi-Fi. Please use the Meeting Owl app to connect me.
It just freaked out on us. Hopefully it'll unfreak out.
So it looks like a grab,
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
What I'm worried about is it's not recording sound anymore.
We'll give it a second. You want me
Can you
to?
bring up the,
Yeah. Should be right here.
okay, it's got sound still, so we're good.
Okay.
As long as it's got sound, we're good.
All right, so to start with, I'm going to talk to a deck very shortly, and then I'm going to try to keep most all of the content to an actual live demo, and hopefully the demo gods will be good to me today, and I'll be able to get through this with fewer problems than in the past. So this is what I'm going to talk to you about. And here's kind of the agenda. I'm going to walk through the SCCM log parsing. And then show you how I'm going to use the log parsing to install a SCCM client and copy and configure and install it, and then update the client with the latest patches. That's the intent. I'm not sure how far we're going to get. It's to date right now, this script by itself has taken me about a month and a half to develop and actually get tested and running. It's getting ready to go to our production environment in ERCOT probably in a couple weeks. So it's taken me quite a while to get this far. And coming from somebody who knew very, very little about SCCM about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I've kind of learned quite a bit and bit off a little bit since then. So I am no SCCM expert by any stretch of the means, but I know my way around PowerShell. So anyway, moving on. So in the install scripting, there's a function I wrote called SCCM setup log, and what this does is it's going to determine if the installation is complete, and it'll do this by building a object out of the SCCM setup log. So there's actually a log on each computer SCCM setup, and then I build a object to tell me whether or not it's complete. The first set of parsing I did on my own, and I fuddled through, as I guess is the best term. I muddled through trying to get the right regex and that kind of stuff to get to where I could actually get that thing in the object and be able to use it. So I'm going to show you what I first wrote, and then the second part of this, I'm going to show you something I found from the community that was much better. It was much easier to understand and better written than what I wrote. So, but in any case, moving on. So this is kind of how the install process is going to work. There's a copy script that's going to copy the SCCM binaries from the actual config manager server with gosh, what's the term for the main config manager? Site server, from the site server, thank you, to the destination. And the way the script works is the script is written in such a way that I actually create a script block and then have that entire script inside a script block and then send that script block to the machine, and it actually does the copying.
I have a blog to point you to deal with a different way of dealing with that double hop issue. You may or may not, depending on the WAN and whatnot, you may find that beneficial.
Yeah, I could probably use it for something else too. Awesome. All right, then once the copy script is done, I have this other intermediary script that I need for the tools that we have at ERCOT, that it actually drives the behavior of the next items that you see on here, which this driver script is what I call it, actually calls this procedure to install or remove SCCM depending on a registry key. Then during the installation, or excuse me, after you launch the installation with an invoke command, then my script will actually sit there and do a while loop and continually check a log to see if it's finished. And it looks for a particular item in the log. And that's what this is all about, which is using log parsing to your advantage to help you finish something out, if you will. And then once it's complete, once it finds that, then it completes the script. Okay, I'm going to take you through all this code here in a couple minutes. I just want to kind of give you an overview, what I want to talk to you about, and then we're going to dive right into it. Okay.
Does the script do version checking?
Version checking. Oh, you mean against SCCM?
Yeah, of the client installation, yeah.
It will record the version, but it doesn't really check the version. It could be done
Cool.
with some extra code, but it could be done.
You should be installing from the latest version.
Well,
Yeah, but the pre-production as well. So say you want to go and get your pre-production client out there in a rush without having to wait for a maintenance window. I'm actually facing this problem right now. Cool, thank you.
okay. Any more questions?
What PowerShell version is required for this?
I'm presently using 5.1. My guess is it would probably work with 3, but I'd have to double check. You would have to run it and see if it would blow up or not. I've been using 5.1.
Okay, cool.
Depends on the version of SCCM and the command list. The SCCM, I think it's 2016. You have to have PowerShell 5.1.
That would make sense because at ERCOT, we're using Cisco UCS Director, and Cisco UCS Director actually has a PowerShell agent server that runs on a Windows box, and then Cisco UCS Director calls it to do a task. Well, I ran into this bug where it kept telling me that the module versions were wrong, and I think it's exactly that issue that you're talking about. So what I actually had to do is do a start process of my main script and have it carry it out to be able to do it.
Running on the server or the client?
So very good question. So most of these scripts are designed so that you're running from like a management station and you're commanding a machine to do something through either invoke command, right? And then streaming the script to it to actually get it to run it.
Do you need PowerShell rerouting to do that?
Yes.
Do you need PowerShell rerouting? Any chance of WMI rerouting or PS execute in the future?
Yeah, WMI is going away, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of current
Replacing it
situations.
with SIM.
I don't know. Depends on what you need. I
Yeah.
don't know. We could look at it. Okay. Now for this next piece is where I'm actually calling SCCM and I move a machine from not in any collection to a collection inside of SCCM. And that collection contains all the patches for that particular machine. And through calling a task sequence, it immediately patches it once it's arrived in that collection. And that's what my script is actually doing. So it goes out, calls that, moves the machine to the collection. Once it's in the collection, then it triggers the task sequence that does all the updates. Now, I can't get into the task sequence because honestly, somebody else wrote it and I'd have to learn it myself to be able to understand what it does. So if you want to talk about it, we could look at it offline. So within that, in scope of this particular session, I have the following log parsing routines that I've written and or garnered from other folks. The one that I garnered from this other individual that was much better than the scripting I wrote is a guy by the name of Rich Prescott. And Rich Prescott has this script where he takes and he actually cuts up the file, if you will, and puts it all in an object so you can actually operate on it. Unlike the CCM log tool, whatever the name of that thing. Yeah, that, and there's another one too. In any case, so I chose to use this, and that spurned into 2 different other modules. The second module there, I have a chapter in a book that's coming out, that my first chapter in a book that Mike Robbins is putting together that's out on, oh my goodness, I can't think of the name of the site.
Is it the one he's looking at right now?
Yep,
The proceeds from it go to a scholarship?
Yep, yep. So I have a chapter in there, and it's specifically on the get CCM log function. What's cool about the get CCM log function is it will allow you to use dynamic parameters. However, dynamic parameters don't work very well when you're trying to pass variables to a dynamic parameter. Because of the way PowerShell parses parameters, it will go to a dynamic parameter block before it imports all of the functions. And so it never sees your variable. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. So in any case, I have a write-up for that in that book. You're welcome to purchase a copy and get it from there. Hopefully it'll be posted soon. Hasn't quite made it there yet. Then the next one in there is the get CCM specific log. I wrote that one so that instead of using the dynamic dynamic, I'm getting lost. Dynamic parameter, you can use this one and get the specific log you're looking for. Okay, so the get CCM log would be useful, like if you're debugging logs and you need to find something and find it quickly, you could just type in get CCM log minus computer name, whatever the computer name is, minus the path for where the logs are. And then the next thing that will happen is it'll show you minus log and then give you all the log names that are available through command completion. Okay, so now I've kind of talked to this already. This is what happens with the script that I have. I'll import some modules. I wrote a bunch of functions that I put in a module called SCCM utilities. They're all stuff that I've just kind of patched together, if you will, for various things that use this get CCM log for doing some of the things that you need to do client side. So I import that, and then I'm also using a module called PSINI, and you have to use a PSINI module to get the GUID for the machine that we're about to patch. And I'll show you that in a little bit as to why I do that. Then inside of the setup routine, I actually trigger the updates. Go ahead.
What is there anything required on client side, or is it all done through your management box or whatever?
What do you mean by client side?
Like, do the modules have to exist? Does the client need PowerShell 5.1?
This is where the versioning question comes in.
For this portion of what we're talking about here, I'm commanding the SCCM client through WMI calls. So everything's local to the machine that's doing the execution, which in the case of where I'm going to be running it from, it'll be from the site server. I'm actually running it from a management station that UCS director is going to call, which is a separate Windows host. That has nothing to do with SCCM, other than it has SCCM commandlet.
So the technician's computer.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I had, because of the way this lab was set up, I had to put it on something. So I'm running it on the site server for now, during this demo. Did I answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
So the module exists on the site server and your...
No, it's a remote. It's a remote system. It doesn't have to be the site server. It just happens to have it on the site server for this example.
Okay.
So your computer, you'll be on your computer if you're the technician.
Yeah, so if you're executing it from your box, then you would have to have the PSINI module and my SCCM utilities module. Okay. And then there are some ancillary things, like you would have to have the SCCM administration console installed. It won't run without it.
And credentials, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Credentials?
Yes. Yep. You have to have credentials that are pertinent to the SCCM instance that you're dealing with, right? They give you the proper permissions.
No, that makes sense.
I'm not going to go into all that. I don't know all the admin details that we need to know because I'm still learning SCCM. Okay, so then the next thing that happens is it will actually trigger the scheduled task or the task sequence, which will cause the site code and server to push the updates. Then it'll query in a for loop, or excuse me, in a do loop or a while loop, one of the two. It's going to query for completion. And when it completes, it'll remove it from the collection, and then we're done. So the requirement I was given was put this machine in a collection, patch it, check for it to make sure that it's fully patched, and then when it's done, take it out of the collection. So that's where we're at with that.
Can you run this kind of stuff through a task scheduler?
I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. I would assume so because I have to run it through. the PowerShell agent server for Cisco, which is equivalent, should be mostly equivalent. Because what it does is actually streams the script from UCS Director down to the agent that it has, and then that transitions it over to PowerShell.
Okay.
Okay, I think I have my slides out of order. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and go into the demo, which the first thing I'm going to do is show you the install scripting. And then based on the amount of questions we have and all that, it could be that we don't get all the way through. If we don't, I can just carry it forward to the next session if we need to. Because I don't have anybody lined up for next month anyway. Not yet anyway.
Quit asking questions.
No, not actually. I wouldn't mind carrying it on. That makes it easier for me. All right. So let me just give you an idea of what my lab looks like. So I'm running on Hyper-V on my Surface. So it took me quite a while to get this to where it was running properly. I've got 3 VMs that I'm running. Let me see if I can zoom the screen in a little bit. Anybody remember what the zoom key is in Windows?
Control and your mouse scroller.
Yep.
But you have to install Zoom. If you haven't installed Zoom.
Oh yeah, but it doesn't zoom the window. It zooms all the icons in the background. Crap. Okay.
You might be able to click in the VM and zoom the VM though.
Yeah, he's gonna show that though.
Okay, well, just suffice it to say that I have a machine called CM02, another machine called DC1, which of course is the domain controller. And then I have another server called Server 1 that in here, just so that I know it's 2016, I named it Server 16 in the VM Hyper-V manager. So all my scripts are on this particular machine. And everything I'm going to show you this evening, I have on my GitHub site. It's under, I'll show it to you again. Let's get a little further. Wait for my screen to refresh. Come on.
Did you? You might not have the right.
You probably might have to increase the resolution on the VM.
I got to figure out how to get back out of here. Shoot. What is it? Control? No, that's the.
Is it 5 maybe?
Nope. Let's see.
Try F9.
F9? Oh.
Normally a key combination though.
Ah.
It's like Control.
Alt. VMware.
When I had this full screen
Break.
earlier.
Try Control Alt break.
Okay, where's my break key?
Oh boy.
I don't think this keyboard has a break.
Okay.
That's right. Does it have an end?
Yeah, it does have an end. Control end?
Control.
Nope.
Control escape.
Oh man. Well, when all else fails, we'll go to task manager.
Control Alt pause. It says on Google-ish.
There you go at the bottom. Yeah, there.
What's the Goog say?
The Google says Control Alt pause, which I'm sure you're going to have a keyboard.
Let me just close this and restart it.
Make sure it's an advanced session when you open it.
Yeah, I thought it was. Thought I opened it that way.
VMware Workstation does not that.
Well, Mike, a little late for that.
Yeah.
I should have consulted you before.
I'm just kidding.
That's okay, man. Just know that it'll come right back at you.
Yeah, I know it.
No, it's on advance.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see if that works better.
Well, to change resolution, I guess. Good to log in and change resolution.
Oh. Control Alt break is what it said on the menu there.
Oh, now you're.
Nice. Joy. You can almost see that.
Oh, well, just go inside the VM and change the resolution.
Even an RDP or a console?
It's an RDP.
RDP.
You gotta redo the RDP session then.
Oh, you kidding? Ah,
Yeah, go full screen. There you go.
sweet, this is Hyper-V 101.
Yeah, for sure, right? I think it was the demo gods, actually. Okay.
There we go.
All right, so the very first script that I have that I'll just briefly go over with you guys. Obviously we have some parameters, and see my nice fancy password, this so I didn't have to type anything in. And plus it's all blow up VMs anyway, so it doesn't make any difference. And then I have a validate set parameter here so that when the script runs, you don't know which environment to actually send variables for, what's all that's for, so I didn't have to do it twice. Then I have this script block that you see here, which is, there's a parameter with a credential, the client location. And then what this is gonna do, this is gonna fire off on the destination that we're gonna do the copy from and to. It's gonna, the SCCM setup log is here. Then the install location is in the temp, what we're gonna copy this to is the temp directory for the user that we're running under. In this case, it's administrator. Then it's going to copy that to this, where's the location? Where did I pass that? I'll put a break in here so you guys will see where it's going to. Oh, here it is. This is when I do dev versus prod, I made this variable so that if it's running against dev, we'd use the dev location versus the prod location. And for the sake of this demo, they're both the same, because I only have one environment at this point. All right, then this is going to give me my current location. And if the client install does not exist, then it's going to make the directory that you see here. That's what this SMS client install directory is for. Then I'm going to make a PowerShell drive called destination and another one called SMS, which is where I'm getting the information from. And then I'm going to copy from SMS recursively to the destination, force it, and then pass through the results so that I make sure I get the results back. Then I'll remove the SMS drive and the destination drive, and then the copy will be complete. So,
Quick question.
sure, go ahead.
What are the @ symbols around the script block? Like
That's called a here string.
Here string. What is that?
The here string lets you put in a multi-line script or items that you want,
That's cool.
so that you can actually use that however you desire.
Yeah.
You can do that with anything from JSON to XML to whatever it is you need.
If the script text in there is tabbed over, do you still have to account for those spaces, or does it?
No, it actually doesn't really matter. PowerShell will see it as a carriage return line feed and treat it the same way, because it'll pull all that in as a carriage return line feed. Okay. Any other questions? Thanks for asking. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, just so that we see it running, I'm going to put a breakpoint in here. And all I did, for those of you that have or have not used ISC and the debugger in here, we'll just step through the debugger as we do this. So again, you could actually run this script, and in production, I actually pass parameters to it, but I just hard code the parameters this time, so be that much faster for demonstration purposes. Okay, and this is all running straight from my desktop. And let's see, I think it creates, did I have it create a log file? I usually do. Maybe I did. Okay. So here we go. So as you can see, it stopped on line, usually it tells you, oh, here it is. Stopped on line 34 of copy SMS client, right there, you can see. Everybody see that okay? All right, so all I'm gonna do is, when you're in the debug mode, I'm gonna use the shortcut keys from here on out, but you can do step over, step into, or step out, or continue. These are all the different items that you have in the debugger. And if you have a function and you want to step into that function, that's what step into means. Step over means run that function. I don't care what it does. It'll keep going. All right. So then I'll just demonstrate to you what this script block looks like to kind of answer your question, Mike. So if I just type in script block here, we'll see actually what's in the script block. So there you can see the contents of that script that I showed you above. And in order for me to send this to that machine, I have to build this script block with this command, create script block, and then you just pass it right here. I don't know why I call it script block check, but whatever, just whatever. Okay, so now if we hit F10, it should execute on that particular machine, provided Tommy has it running. So what I'm going to do now is minimize that machine, and we'll go over to server 16.
Where do you have your remote computer name defined? Is it in the environment variables at the top of that script?
Remote computer. Oh, yeah, it was the first one, was the computer name, which is this machine here. I should have showed you that it didn't have it installed first. Or the contents weren't there.
We trust you.
Okay.
Remote command.
Settings.
Nothing down right now.
What one was it I chose in here? You guys remember? Connect.
Just
Oh, here we go. So what this should do, and what we should see when we go to this particular machine, after it's done with its copy, we should be able to go into the temp directory for administrator and see the version of SCCM client.
You know that's the server you're logging into, right?
What?
You're logging into the server, you know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Never mind, just checking. I thought you had to log into the client machine.
Ah, crap. This is the client in this case.
This password.
If I could type. All right.
Tom, why'd you use new PS drive rather than just UNC pads?
PowerShell doesn't work with UNC pads very well. It always kind of gets a little squirrely with it. And so I've just developed the habit of, instead of using UNC, just create a PowerShell drive, because you can name it whatever you want and then delete it at the end. It's just easier.
You can also do different creds. I don't think you can do different.
Yeah, you can't with UNC. You can with new PS credential. That's the other reason. Thanks, Mike. Good point. Let's see. Got to go to profiles.
That's part of what I'm going to show you. Is this
Okay.
alternate to hopping. It has to do with PS drive and alternate in cred.
Okay. Temp folder. Let's see if it did it fail. Maybe it did. Should have been right there. Uh-oh, it did fail.
Demo codes, not smiling yet.
No. So at the end of the day, what it looks like is, oh, damn it. Wrong one. It will look like this because I just ran this on this domain controller. So you'll see there's a folder in here called SMS client install. My apologies since you can't see it very good. Let me, come on, make the font bigger. Can't see it any better, can you? Yeah.
Large icon, small text.
Yeah. So here's the, I've run it 4 times, as you can see here. When I actually run the installer, it'll actually create this install log here. Let me run it one more time, see what maybe my configuration manager machine is not in the machine right. Server. Well, that would be why.
IP address changed.
Oh, should know. That would be why.
What kind of switch is that? There's local MAC, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see what it thinks it is. Huh? Well, I was just gonna see on this machine, so it's all local. Shouldn't have any hops to go over. Shouldn't. Could be that Thom mistyped something, or you know, config 2.100. What does it think it is? Do
they both have a gateway defined?
ICMP inbound enabled.
The network adapter enabled on that. Yes, and sometimes when you use the type of insurance
Okay, that one's working fine. It's got to be the other machine. Okay, what I'm going to do for the sake of this demo is I'm just going to show you that it'll work on DC01. Since it's up and running, I don't want to spend that time to go try to troubleshoot it.
That next meeting too.
You're right. You're okay. I don't care what anybody says about you, Ramin. You can be on my team if you want. Okay, let's see. We'll go to DC1.
So why is the login inside roaming local user administration hidden in there?
Because if you actually do $env temp, that's where it is.
Okay. So
I'm using the variable on that machine.
all right, cool. Makes sense.
Because I don't really care where it puts it, just so long as I know where it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I should have put zoom it on here. I'm very sorry, guys. Let's see what we got. It'll make me look bad. Okay. This is where I put it. I put it in this location on that machine. This is the results from the copy. Everybody see that? Okay. Now that I have that there, I'll be able to call it and actually run. I'm not sure what's wrong with the NIC on my server 16. It was working earlier. In any case, All right, so moving on. If you recall, I said earlier that I have this driver script, as I like to call it, which actually kind of acts as a wrapper for the reinstall script for SCCM itself. Oh, thanks, Wasu. And what this is going to do is use the same variables. I have the log location, and then what I'm going to use for the site string when it does the setup. This is the actual value I'm going to send to it. And then what is, I don't need to.
Oh, site server.
Yeah, that is a site server.
Okay.
So then what it's going to do here is I'm getting all the content of this SMS client reinstall. And I'm going to put it in memory in this remove reinstall variable, which will get the entire contents of that file. And then I'm going to create a script block out of that entire file that you see here. And then I'm going to actually run it with this SCCM run with an invoke command. And it looks very similar to the other one that I used before. And I'm in the argument list, I'm sending the setup log and the site string to go with it. And then it's going to look for an item, actually, it's actually going to put this in the log file. This is actually going to SCCM reinstall complete. It'll put the run details after that from here, and then it'll give you the date and time format for when it ran today, which is generic time format, and then a carriage return line feed. And then it'll tell you what environment, what site, and site string it was using. That's what this is going to put it in a log file. And it's going to send it to the C temp directory, whatever the name of the computer is, SCCM run log, and append to it. So if I've run it more than once, we should see every time I've run it. Okay. So with that in mind, since I've changed it to the DC01 server, I'll go ahead and run this. This is the actual install script. And while we're doing that, what I'll do is I'll step through the reinstall piece and show you what it does. Oh, I gotta close this. I close this so it can run. Had a file handle open. There we go. Okay, now that I don't have it open, let me run it again. And then I'll go through and show you the details of it. All right, while that runs, I'll pull that up on a different machine here. Okay, if you're familiar with my GitHub or my email address, it's crashandburn66. I'm a car nut. And my Twitter handle is the name of my favorite car backwards, Dribberiff. So hopefully you can figure that out. Firebird, in other words. So in the example section are all the code that I'm showing you here. So what I'm going to do is just pull this up here so you'll be able to see it real time, and I'll increase the font. Tell me when you can see it good enough. Is that better?
Yep.
Everybody can see it okay? All right. So in here, I wish I'd done it in PowerShell because I have these regions in here to kind of help explain it, but this works too. So in here I have where the setup log is, the site string, where it's actually the client install directory is, so we can go grab it and actually run the utility, and then where we're going to log to. Okay. So let me go down to the main body of here. I have several different functions that I wrote specifically for this install routine. And if you recall, I told you that I started my parsing the hard way by writing it myself until I found somebody else's code. And the example of the parsing that I wrote to build the object is in this first function you see here. It's called new SCCM setup object. And what you do is you call that with the log file location. And what it'll do is it'll run some regular expressions against the log and then put it in an object for you. So you can actually look at that object and make a decision. Anybody want me to go through it?
Next meeting.
Okay, that'll work. So moving on. So let me get down to the main body of this. Okay. So on line 92, we're going to set up the script log. So we're going to insert the date and time in it, is all that line 92 does. Then we create the actual script log itself. And then we set up for the key that we're going to query to see if it's present. If the HKLM software Microsoft CCM key exists, which is what this line 95 is about, then we're going to step into removing the SCCM client. So in here, every time I run one of these, I use T object to actually send it to the screen as well as sending it to the log file. Okay, that you can see there. And here is where we're getting the SCCM version with the function I wrote, Oliver. There's a get SCCM client version that I wrote in here that you can call that and it'll tell you what version you have installed.
Sweet.
Then it checks to see if it can find the setup log. If it can't, then it will run a routine called find SCCM setup log that's in one of the functions above that I wrote that are part of the script. And then the next thing it's going to do is remove the SCCM agent with a install with the setup path to the setup log. All right, moving on from here. So if it doesn't find that key, that it's going to tell you, hey, I didn't find an agent on here, I'm going to go on to the install. So one of my requirements was, look, I want to make sure it's always the latest client. So if you find that it's there, just uninstall it because we don't want to have to do this. When you attach a machine with a SCCM client, you have to do this, some task. It's like
Set up.
What is that called? It's some
Set up version.
Well, yeah, whatever it is, you got to change its GUID or something. In any case, that I was given those as a requirement to uninstall the client if you see it, so that it would freshly install it and put it against that SCCM server. Okay, so on line 116, there's a call to a function I wrote called install SCCM agent. I give it the install location, the site string, and then of course send the output to a log file. Okay. Then down here in this routine, this is where I'm actually doing most of the lifting that this session was about, which was parsing log files and taking advantage of them. So here I actually call the new SCCM setup object, pass it where the setup log is. It excuse me, builds the object. And then the next statement is we're going to query the object to see if the status looks like CCM setup is exiting with return code 0, because that's the status that tells us it's done. In addition, we want to make sure that our install start time is greater than what our current time is. So what I actually do in the beginning of the script is actually record the install start time so that I don't get the wrong setup timestamp. It's got to be after that timestamp.
Does this handle multiple rollover logs if the log rolls over? Like as a .1 or something?
No, because a .1, .2, that kind of thing actually would be after we launch the install, right? Because it would be older stuff. So no. You could with the other routine I wrote, which will actually pull the logs in, and then you could search through all the rest of those. I'll show you that get SCCM log as well on my desktop here in just a couple minutes. If you want to see it, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, Oliver, you kind of thinking like TS logs?
Yeah, OSMS TS log.
Yeah, how those constantly, yeah. You could increase the logs file size in your environment to
We did.
16.
Yeah, we just recently went to 1710 and the logs got more verbose, like incredibly verbose.
Yeah, okay.
So I haven't had time to look into why it's happening, but.
Okay, on line 134, we're also doing an else if statement. If it looks like CCM setup failed with error code star, whatever it is, then we're going to add to the error log and then log the write output there and then remove the SCCM agent since it failed. And we'll try the install agent again. We'll try it for 3 times.
Error on line 139.
Did I spell it wrong?
It's one more R. It sounds like I'm hiring. Error.
I think that was a mistake in the name of my variable, actually.
Error.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake in my error. Yeah, if you look at line 136, it's got the 3 R's in it.
And
I sometimes do that. I don't know why I do that. You know, sometimes your fingers get a little happy and push in a couple extra R's. Pirate routine, huh? Nice. Okay, so assuming that we're complete, let's see. I gotta scroll over so I can scroll down.
3 tries and you're sleeping a minute for each try. Is that?
That sounds right. I have to look at the code. I can't remember. Yeah,
greater than 3. 45.
yeah, so if it fails 3 times, then it's essentially, we're going to throw an exception. If we'll throw it, and then somebody's going to have to clean it up.
Cool.
So that's the install routine. Okay.
Nice.
We'll see how we did. Let's see if it actually did it. So let's see. Yeah, I get this all the time. I didn't have time to troubleshoot it. I'm only getting it in this lab, this out file right here. For some reason, it's not writing to it, but you can see, I'll show you that it's actually installed. Because there should be 2 DC01s inside of SCCM. You notice there's, let's make sure that it did. Here's the SMS client install directory. What time is it? According to that, 8:30. This is the last log that it built. And at 8:31, installed successfully is what it. Okay, So it actually logs it here, shows you what PID it ran under. Okay. Today is the 10th, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I don't know if you can see that or not. Apologize for the font. All right. So now we have an installed and working SMS client on DC01, as you see here.
SCCM client?
Yeah, the client itself. Now, since we have the client installed, the next routine is going to be to actually call the task sequence, which is what's going to be doing the patching. So the hardest part of this whole business for calling the task sequence was finding out the correct formatting of the actual task sequence. Because you actually, have any of you actually tried to trigger a schedule with SCCM? With WMI? It takes a little while bit to figure it out. In any case, for a task sequence, there's a special ID that's on the very end of the task sequence that you stitch onto the end of it. One of the SCCM experts at ERCOT told me about it. And so what you end up with is for the task sequence you're going to call, you get the package ID and you put it here, and then you get the deployment ID and put it here. It's kind of out of order in instructions, but at least gives you an idea. Because what we're going to end up doing here is we'll call DC01 and tell it to actually.
And are you just giving those sequence IDs and deploy IDs, or are they being generated from something else?
They're actually inside of SCCM, which I'll show you in just a minute.
Okay.
Pardon?
Is it DC01 or DC01?
Oh, thank you. Man, good thing I got a second set of eyes for me. Thanks, Wasu, again. So the collection we're going to move this thing to is called Update Now Servers. The site server we're using is CM02. There's an advertisement ID. I have some of these variables kind of not correctly defined, but it was from when I was learning the product itself, so I haven't changed them to be a little bit better. Now, this schedule is actually the task sequence schedule that we're going to call through WMI, which is what I alluded to here, which was the hardest part to figure out.
What makes that last ID? Sorry, did I miss something?
Sorry?
In that combination, deployment and package, and what's that last one?
This one right here?
Yeah.
I was told by an SCCM expert that I work with that it's the same for every SCCM instance.
Okay, so
and it's worked so far.
It's just some kind of hash.
I don't know what the heck it is. I really don't.
Huh.
Okay?
Thanks, sorry.
No, it's all right. It's all right. So moving on from here, of course, we're going to build our credential object from the credentials we passed. There's probably, I'm sure there's lots of people that would tell me I should do this differently, but I had to do it this way because of the way we are calling this script through UCS director. Could actually embed the credential in a variable locally, but it's a to-do item at this point. Not that it's not important, it's just, anyway. For the purposes of this demonstration, it's not pertinent at the moment. All right, now what I'm gonna do when we go through the script is I'm gonna use this thing called a time span object. And when I actually delay for 15 seconds, which is the next item, I'm gonna add 15 seconds to my time span object. So I'll get a total time span for how long I've been waiting. And you'll see that spit out in the log as it goes. All right, then moving on from here, I'm going to start a transcript. Now I have to start this transcript because I need to know what the PID number is because I'm calling this, I'm using a means where I call the script and then spawn off a brand new PowerShell instance. So I need to know what the PID is in case I have to kill it. All right. So then this next piece of code is what this is doing. Oops, am I too far on me? This is checking for whether I'm running as a script or I'm running locally. And if I'm running as a script, I'm going to step into this piece here and then import my module and my INI module as well. Okay. I use that one pretty much all the time to actually load my scripts when I don't use them in my profile path. For those of you, everybody familiar with what I mean by profile path? Where you would actually download a module and it shows up in your path and it auto loads for you. I use this to cheat so I don't have to actually put it in the profile. I just keep it with a script or wherever I decide to put it. The next piece of this is actually, in order for this script to run, you have to have SCCM itself installed, the actual configuration admin console, because it's going to actually use some of the modules that are in that particular set of modules. Then the next thing is all those modules will not work if you don't have a PowerShell drive defined as the same name as your site ID, whatever your site ID is. In my case, my site ID is TP1, and you have to change directory to that TP1 directory. One thing I have noticed that's really annoying is when you create that and you change directory to the, like, let's say you're changing the directory to the site directory, and then you want to do some commandlets that are in SCCM and carry out something. That works great. But then you try to do something on the file system, and then it starts throwing all these weird errors. So what I normally do before I change directory to go to SCCM, the SCCM PS drive, is I use a push location, and I push onto the stack where my current directory is, so I can do what I need to do inside of the SCCM directory. And then when I want to come back out of it, I'll pop out so that I can do whatever I need to do locally on C drive or wherever it might be.
Is the push dash location, is that like native within PowerShell, or that's
Yeah, it's actually native to DOS as well. DOS has it, and so does Bash. Bash has it as well. Yeah, push. It's actually called push D and pop D. But push location and pop location is the fully qualified name that's inside of PowerShell for it. It's actually pretty handy. I use it quite often. All right, so this next section of code, which is the move to collection, the intent of this is to, first of all, the first thing that we need to do is go to the file path on the machine that we're installing to and get its current GUID for the machine. Because part of the routine for what are the requirements I was given is we can only have one machine of that name within a given SCCM instance. So what I do is I end up using that GUID to determine what I'm going to put in the collection and then get rid of the other ones. Does that make sense? I'll show you in a minute. If it doesn't make sense, I'll show you. All right, and what I'm using is I'm using this commandlet from PSINI to actually pull in the INI file, because it'll actually parse the INI file for me and then put it in an object. And so all you have to do is specify what you want inside that INI file. In this particular instance, I want the client properties and the unique identifier, and then I'm going to put it in this SMS ID. And that's actually the GUID for that particular machine. Okay.
What's the plus ID? So they can have multiple GUIDs in the SMS?
Oh, it's so if it's null.
What line number?
Oh, 945. 945. So what I'm doing here is if the INI content fails, then I add one to the ID and then loop around again, I believe is why I did that. Arguably, whenever you write code, you always find mistakes when you go review your code or code review it. And this might be one of them where I need to make a correction.
There might be 5 instances of a GUID in there.
I wouldn't think so. There should only be one. Then it's going to pop out and tell you what the actual GUID is. And then it'll pop out of the location we moved to in case we moved there. And then we're going to push the location again. You'll see I probably use it more than I need to, but just safety's sake. All right, so here we're going to get the collection ID for the name that we're passed. Because I'm going to actually use that with the commandlet instead of the actual update servers now collection, whatever it is. I want the ID for it and not the actual name. Because that's why I first wrote it, and it was easier just to do that than change all my variables, to be honest. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is when I do a get CM device against SCCM, I'm going to ask it, I'm going to look and see if there's more than one. If there's more than one, what this routine does is this for loop, what it's going to do is check to see if it's online, or if the online is false, then it'll remove it. And that's how I clean it up out of SCCM. It seems to work so far. Hopefully I won't have any production problems, but we'll see. Okay. All right. All right, because I ran into an instance where SCCM wasn't finished installing and then this script came in faster than the install was done, I had to write this routine to make sure that CM device wasn't null and we're not over a particular counter, which I set this resource counter at 40. So I get a CM device if it's against the computer name, and then put the resource ID in there. And I check to see if it's not null and test to see if it's installed. Oh man. Let's see, what am I doing here?
Is the 40 number just an arbitrary number? Or?
Yeah. And here's where I add the actual seconds to the start sleep. So it'll sleep however many seconds. It'll sleep 15 seconds here, but I'm keeping track of how many times I've slept with that time span object. Then this next region of code is actually going to add the machine to the collection. It checks to make sure that it's not there already. If it's already there, then it's going to leave it alone. That's what that if block is for. Then as part of SCCM, you have these two collection routines that you need to collect from the client before you can trigger other items. And I don't completely understand it. I just know that the two that you need to trigger are request machine policy assignments and evaluate machine policy assignments. And those of you that are SCCM experts, which I'm not, probably understand why you need to do that. I don't at this point. So once I've done that, I actually use a routine seconds firing triggers again. Oh, I know what this is. Wow, not. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm waiting for these two WMI methods to finish. When these two WMI methods finish, then I can actually trigger my task to execute.
Because you just installed the client.
Yeah, because I just
to show up.
Yeah, we got to get everything. We got to get it to actually inventory the machine.
It
And
takes a while for once you install the client, your installer is finished. But then there's all this background work to go on to get all of those inventories set up and then run.
So all that sleeping you're doing earlier, you could possibly bypass that by having it monitor with your CM trace, your PowerShell script, watching the CCM setup log.
yeah, I still have to sleep though.
Yeah, because I mean the CCM setup log can get to 0 until the actual client has been installed, but then all the work in the background with the WMI.
Yeah, but then the WMI, I'm saying the WMI stuff is good, but earlier he's sleeping constantly.
Yeah, I'm just rechecking it.
You're just rechecking, but you
I
can
have-
use the setup log to go and verbosity go through that instead.
That's what I'm using as a setup log.
I'm sorry, I must have said.
So
I must have missed it.
it took me a while.
Can't read.
Some things I was doing with post CCM setup to understand that just because the client was installed doesn't mean all the components are built yet.
Yeah, it took me a while to understand that too. It just didn't seem.
Yeah.
It's such a beast. Gosh, that thing is a
Yeah,
beast.
don't expect this thing to do anything quickly ever.
I think it's because of the SQL backend.
It's
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
When I actually set this up on like, what was it, Friday night? It took me, because I was running it off a USB 3 drive off this Surface. It took 18 hours to install.
Wow.
18 hours. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to move this locally. And so I did, and it only took like an hour and a half.
the acronym, the joke acronym for previous this SMS was slow moving software.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's built to manage tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of clients. It doesn't do anything fast.
Mm.
I gotta say, within the last 3 CMs, though, we have definitely seen a performance boost. They've been working on it hard.
Okay. Go ahead.
Real quick, what is write dash output like verbose logging, debug logging, or what?
Yeah, right. So if you're familiar with write-host,
What is this? Reference to the screen.
yes, write output will write to the screen or to transcript or wherever. It's a little bit better than write-host. It's better than write-host.
Is it, so in this case, is it writing, where's it writing to?
It'll write to the screen, and it's also going to end up in the transcript. Because I start a transcript at the very top, and I number the transcript with a date so that I can find it again. All right, so we're going to run through this log, and every 6th time we run through it, if we still haven't got the results we want, I trigger the schedules again. So I'll trigger them, depending on how fast or slow the client is, I may trigger it 6, 8, 10 times till I get what I want. And if it gets to 24, which there's some math in it, I forget what the exact math is. But if it's 24, if W is 24 times, which is 24 times 15 seconds, I forget what the math is. Anyway.
I was told repeatedly you should run both of the triggers at the same time.
I'm doing it, it's
You should
okay.
like run them like 5 minutes apart. You should run them.
Well, maybe I should.
Like that.
The inventories? Were you saying running inventories?
Yeah, the WMI methods.
Yeah, I'm beginning to understand that too. That it's not a good idea.
Well, maybe I need to put something in there
You
then.
need to do the first one, but wait about 5 minutes or.
Yeah, but how do you know when it's done? That's what I've never been able to figure out.
More logs.
I know, that's what I wrote all this SCCM crap for.
Other logs.
Was to parse the daggum log.
SCCM is like there's a million
Log monster.
Yeah,
Well,
but try and send it to a Kibana instance and then watch quickly how they cut that off.
sorry, what's
Because
Kibana?
you're filling up their logs.
What the heck is Kibana?
That's the search. Centralized logging.
Ah, okay. Okay, well, maybe I should do a code review with the guys from SCCM, see if they don't like what I did. If they don't, then I'll change my code. And somewhere in here I have, actually, I run this other routine called pending updates. What it actually does is there's a script from the community that checks to see if there's pending updates, and I just roll that into my SCCM utilities module so that I can actually call it. And it tells me if there's pending updates.
Now, is the technical updates based off of your own network?
No, the machine, I don't remember. I have to look at the routine. I don't remember.
Mounting the drive.
Okay, let's see. So moving on here from here. I set it to false because I wanted to at least go through this loop once on purpose. And then we'll check for it here in a minute. So here we're going to start the task sequence. Or actually, we're going to, this very first variable, line 147, what I'm doing here is I actually want to get the timestamp for the machine that we're actually querying. So I have a reference point. So this $start task sequence, what it really is supposed to indicate is, hey, this is my time hack. This is when I started. Okay. Then here I'm going to do a query against WMI. And this query against WMI is looking for my advertisement ID, which is the actual task sequence I'm going to be running. And then I'm going to put it against the object so that we can actually trigger it, which you'll see here. This next call actually invokes a WMI method to actually trigger the schedule for the task sequence. That's what this does here, which if you remember correctly at the very beginning of the script, there's a schedule area or schedule item, and that's that weird schedule ID and task ID, and then the number on the end, the weird number on the end is what that is. And we're actually invoking it there. And then you'll see it pop up on the client where it actually starts to run that task sequence. And then this next loop is where we're actually going to go through and verify that whether we're done or not, or where we're at in the process. So you'll notice I'm calling the routine I told you about, the get CCM specific log. So what this is going to do is it's going to call Windows CCM logs SMSTS log. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
I can't see it from here.
4 lines up.
Line 365, 163. Okay. So we're going to call that, and we're going to put the results of that log check in this SMSTS log. And we're going to look for the validation string, which my validation string is right here. Finalize logs to SMS client log directory from blah. That's what we're looking for in that log file. When I actually set up the get CCM log or get CCM log specific log, I always append log to the end of whatever the name of the log is we're getting in the object. So if you look here on line 164, I'm doing an if SMSTS log.SMSTS log. There's actually a property called that, where the message inside of this property is like our validation string. Then I wrote this other routine that tests to see if the task sequence is complete, which I can show you in a little bit. Actually, in my library of functions that I wrote. It looks, you send to the site server the site code, the computer name, and past hours and a credential. And then we're going to do pending updates. And then we're going to do this check if the local time is greater than a start task sequence time and no pending updates, then we've got success. Else, it's going to go look in a different directory, because when you run this task sequence, it starts out in one log and then flops to the other one. So you'll see some errors in here when it runs because it can't find the log.
Yeah.
Or if it's rebooting, it'll actually error too.
Yeah,
and I haven't fully been able to trap all of those just yet. I need to put a try catch around them that I haven't quite done yet. And then you'll see down here towards the tail end of this, again, the same kind of activity as far as, where is it? Where we add, every time, if I have to sleep, for whatever reason, I'm adding to that time span variable so that I can echo out how long I've slept. I just did that more for me than anybody, so I knew how long it was going to take. And it'll say pending update, check, blah, 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 however many total seconds it's been. And if it's successful, the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to remove the item that we performed the updates on out of the collection. And this takes a while, sometimes 45, 50 minutes to do for this whole script. So it took me a really long time to get this developed into this particular fashion to get to where it actually was
So the
successful.
update that's performing, is it, you know,
Pardon me?
the update that's performing, is it SCCM update or the
Yeah.
Windows update?
It's Windows updates,
And so when
which
that-
are advertised in this collection that you see here called Update Now servers.
do you have that routinely scheduled, a scheduler for for WSUS to download and do that, or that's?
You're talking
good?
strictly SCCM. He's
Yeah.
talking about the initial involvement of SCCM and then a task sequence that goes and makes sure that the updates are up to date. He
Okay,
has no control.
Okay.
He has no idea what the task sequence is doing. He has no idea of that. He's just making sure that the first thing that happens when that VM is booted is the SCCM client is installed and the task sequence runs. That is supposed to make sure the updates are installed. They can do anything at once. They can sing Ditsy for all he cares. But he's making sure it's running.
But that SCCM server's got a package of whatever the latest updates it grabbed from its local WS server.
correct, right?
Yes, yeah.
So,
So what you're talking about, could we do it?
no,
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah,
just,
he's talking
going
of-
through your flow, right? Because,
Yeah.
you know, first your flow was to install it and do that. Now that you put it in the collection, because
So
all
very,
that
very,
takes,
very-
that all takes that time.
Yeah, very
before-
good point. I mean, I should have said that what the task that I was given was, okay, we've initially provisioned a VM. We need you to make sure that the latest client for SMS gets installed on it. And then, sorry, SCCM, SMS, same thing. And then make sure it gets the latest patches on top of whatever was part of the VM, initial VM image. That's what's going on. And that's what the scripting that I wrote.
And they just basically handed you, here's the task sequence that we used to run.
Well, so what I started out with is I tried my darndest to be able to make the WMI class calls to actually call the collection routines, the policy update, the machine update, all that stuff. But I couldn't figure out success criteria for it. I looked high and low for like, what do I got to look for to make sure this is, I give it a green light. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, what I play with, and it's probably, you know, it's just my habit, is I add a registry into the client. And once I flag it and I see that registry key that I put in there,
Yeah.
then I know it's.
For the task sequence.
Yeah, then it's complete. Then I know now, as long as I'm reading the registry and it's there, if it's not there, then I know it's not done.
It's called tattooing. So you could have your PowerShell, you could have the guy who's making the task sequence make a tattoo in the registry. Then you have the PowerShell monitor for it.
Okay, I might just talk to them.
And also you could do this, get hotfix, it'll list all the installs, and as they add, you can count them. I mean,
Yeah.
generally on Windows 10, there's three. There's your Adobe, there's your cumulative, and then there's the SS update each month.
So curiosity now kind of going through the flow, and I know you have your main machine that runs this, right? Is that scheduled, or is that something that you're calling from the actual site, the site server?
How is it
Or-
triggered? Yeah, how are you
Good
triggered?
question. Good question. I was waiting for you so I could answer. So the answer to your question is through a provisioning platform called Cisco UCS Director.
Okay.
And what Cisco UCS Director does is it tells VMware, go build this VM.
Is that like Microsoft's version of what is it? Cisco. No, but Microsoft version is what's it? Not an app controller. What's it? That operation. Microsoft has it.
Scones?
No, not SCOM. No. It's
Orchestrator.
the orchestrator. There you go.
Yeah, they were originally using Scorch at the place I was at. Scorch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
probably very similar to
Okay.
Scorch.
Okay.
I
But
haven't
of course
never,
it's
I've never
Scorch.
messed with Scorch. This is
No.
my first exposure to actually doing this side of DevOps, if you will.
Mhm. Okay, no, cool. I just-
Yeah, no. Great question. Great question.
Since you're using VMware as your hosting platform, could you have triggers go with that as well? Because you can get a PowerShell command list that talks to the VMware host. They can tell you information like this host has been mounted. This host has been.
So the short answer is yes, but I don't need to because it's orchestrated through Cisco UCS Director.
So it's good enough.
And UCS Director knows when that machine's done, where its storage is, how much it's got configured, where it's, all that stuff about the
It knows
VM.
when, okay.
So all it has to do is then in turn call the scripts I wrote to deal with just SCCM stuff, which is the reason for the scripting that I wrote. Is because it needed to call it to execute the installation of the client. And then from there install and then do the updates.
I'll say in the VMware scripting, that's pretty much where I live. Once a VM is built, it's powered on, its state is going to be that it's running. It doesn't necessarily mean that the operating system is actually up and running.
Yeah, it means the guests are
It's
part
still
of the
running, it
project.
just means that the VM world, it has been initialized by VMware. Okay. So you actually have to check and make sure VM tools are running before you can say state to look at a virtual machine is there. The problem with that is half the people they build a template, they don't install VM tools on the template, so you've got to install that first or check to see if it's installed. That's when you have to start doing WMI calls or some kind of PowerShell. I do test connections, which works pretty well. Generally, once you can ping VM, you can start installing.
It just had to go through.
So I know you probably can't see this very well, but here's the, for this particular collection, here's the items that are in that collection. And this is what it'll patch it with, whether, and the desire for how it was used at ERCOT, the company I'm working for, was for 2016 and 2012 machines, for this to actually happen. So let's say it's patch Tuesday like it is today, and we provision a new VM. Well, the process will call my scripts. My scripts will make sure that it puts it in this collection and it's immediately patched, which includes if it needs to reboot, all that other kind of jazz. And then when it's done, take it out of the collection and then go about it its merry way with whatever needs to go run next.
So are you returning anything to the Citrix systems when these scripts are running, or is it just blindly triggering your scripts and blindly just moving on?
So you're asking about UCS Director?
Yeah.
So good question. With UCS Director, the 6.5 version, which is what we're using, there or 6.5.3, there's a bug with it actually pulling in the modules for SCCM. So what I had to do is actually write a routine that Cisco UCS Director calls new process, gives it PowerShell, and then does a pass through and a wait for it to complete. And what I do inside of UCS Director is there's a wait inside of UCS Director waiting to see if that's done. And then if it hits this timeout period of like 40 minutes, I think is what it is. Then if it hits that and the script isn't done, then there's a separate script inside of it that kills it. And what it'll do is it'll go look for that transcript, look inside the transcript for the PID, find the PID on that box and kill it with a very simple script. So I could give you the code for it if you want it. Go ahead.
Going back to the collection, is the reason why you're doing on the collection for the updates is just simply to isolate it why it's doing those updates?
Yeah, he could probably tell you better what collections are used for. All I know is the requirement I was given was put it in this collection, let it patch, and then when it's done, pull it out. Why? I don't know.
You've got required task sequence assigned to that collection. And then it puts a sheet into that collection, does an inventory check. Then the collection is registered in that computer in that collection, and it triggers all required task sequences to go on. Unless it's in that collection, no updates probably are performed. So once it's completed, probably gets pulled out of that collection, am I correct?
Mhm.
If once it gets pulled out of that collection, no updates
Basically,
are
basically
performed.
isolate the machine until it's in the state you want it to be in. for
Right.
the rest of your time.
Right.
Okay.
And then it's probably put into some other kind of collection that starts.
Yeah, whatever the app team wants, right? At that point.
Config management,
Yeah.
whatever.
See, we do this as a dynamic collection. We use the SCCM information to move our computers into collections as we need them. This is kind of different.
Well, it was the requirements I've given and the way they
Yeah.
designed it, so. But that in and of itself is what the intent of this session was about. Now, what I would like to show you is what I wrote for the book, because I really dig it. I think it's really cool. Dynamic parameters. So I'll give you a demo of that real quick. If you guys want me to kick off the script for this, I will. Go ahead, sir.
One more question on this. Can you go to the scripts you had up
Okay.
within the ISC though?
Within the VM?
Yeah.
Okay. Was this useful at all?
Oh, yeah. I took notes.
Please, if there's anything on that, for heaven's sake, if you end up using it and it's got a bug in it, by golly, tell me, would you? Because I'll probably benefit from it just as much as you will. It's in a bug. So,
I'm gonna need your path.
okay, no problem. No problem. I'll be happy to share it with you.
I think it's on the other script.
On the other, which one, the copy?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Scroll up.
Okay.
No, it's not this.
Okay.
There's another one. Thanks.
All right. The reinstall? Is it this one?
I'll go just a little bit.
We didn't go through a reinstall, so I don't think that's a
Go down.
Oh, the reinstall gets called by the wrapper script. SCCM.ps1.
Oh. Okay, right there. The new dash SCCM setup object. Is that built into your custom module or like what is that? Where's it coming from? And
All right,
can you
so-
see the code behind it.
Yes, you can. I asked earlier if you guys wanted to see it and get any yes or no. Here it is right here. So what this is doing is it takes, it pulls in it gets the content from,
I didn't see where you went. Is this in the same script? Just
yeah, it's in the
script?
reinstall script, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll move it to the,
So-
if you guys want me to, I will move it to my module directory so you can use it if you want to.
So when that line we were just looking at, where you actually did new dash
Right.
SCCM object, where it was.
Yeah, right here,
Uh,
right here.
Yeah. So what is $R, like what?
The amount.
You probably have to like execute the script in there, but what would $R be then?
The amount of log entries, line number basically.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So it's
Each log entry will get its own
correct,
elements in the array.
Okay.
correct. So this is just parsing through and putting it in an object.
So then you can search.
$R is like
or you can
row
search
then,
specific
like
lines.
row equals.
No, it's just an arbitrary variable. Just arbitrary. Lazy programmer. I could have specified a little bit better, just being lazy.
Just real quick, can you search like up and down how many times that new dash SCCM said? Yeah. Just curious where it is. Go up first.
Choose once there. Oh, is there a match in here? It's used in the main body and the last success. And then the function itself.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay, cool.
This is the one that remember I told you there were two scripts that that I have for parsing logs.
I got no guys.
One was this new SCCM setup object, which was specifically just for the setup log. I found one that was better from that fellow I mentioned earlier. So what I'll do is I'll show you that very quickly.
He fails to mention that I sent that link to him the first time.
Oh, did you?
I introduced you to that script.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You did. My apologies, my friend.
Was that next week?
I forgot about that.
Well, my stuff's more happy slashy. It doesn't look as neat as Tom's over here.
Okay. Let's see if I can increase the font. Is that getting better? Yeah. Better? Everybody in here used VS Code?
Yes.
I agree. Okay, so now I'm going to do git. Let me give myself a little bit more resources here.
What is this? Stability plus delete.
That's a problem when you customize it or something.
Oh, this right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
If you use Git, there's a tool called Posh Git.
So it's how many you're ahead or behind?
Yep,
on
yep,
bits?
yep.
Yeah. Develop branch?
Yeah, this is the branch I'm on. This is how many changes there are that are local that haven't been committed.
Oh, so it's like a nagging wife.
Yeah,
Okay, excellent.
you're quite the commodian, you know that?
Cambodian?
Have you not heard that one before either?
It's very good this room is not mixed company.
Right?
Well, it might be. We're on live, by the way.
Objects would have been flying.
Oh, come on. This is what I was talking about, that it's slow sometimes. Oh, there's a pretty good chapter that's in the new book. Do you guys remember Tommy Maynard?
Yeah.
And he's writing a chapter on profiles, on creating, like, taking your local profile and copying it to, like, let's say you have 5 different management machines you use and you want to keep that profile in sync everywhere. He actually wrote a routine module for that.
I think
It's
you
pretty
showed it
slick.
to us.
Is that right?
Yeah, you did.
I Google searched something the other day. And it was like the third hit. It's pretty cool.
It's been very active in the Powershell community recently.
Yeah. Cool.
Is he MVP yet?
Mm-mm.
No? Soon. Maybe that's what he's shooting for, because he suddenly got really active in the last 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
I don't know what's taking so long. I'm going to use ISE instead.
I've enjoyed his input.
It's gonna start working.
I assume he's still in Tucson.
He doesn't get around. Who's that guy that was living in Colorado now? That launched it? He was going to come to your Powershell Saturday. He's into motorcycles. He moves around a lot. I like that.
Okay, can you see that?
Oh, boy.
my machine is crawling. Okay, CD,
Well, you
SCCM.
pause to VM, right? You can stop it, all out.
Yeah,
The RAM still not being used.
okay, well, too late. Okay, so here's the routine that I have for parsing CC logs. So I'll show you how this command line completion works. It's pretty cool. So I'm just going to use localhost. And I have a copy of logs on CCM logs. Come on.
Oh.
Ah. There we go. Finally picked them up. So this is what I was talking about. This is the dynamic parameter.
Yeah.
So if you were actually to look at get CCM log itself, it doesn't have the parameter in the param block. When you look at the code itself, which I'll show you in just a minute, it's actually defined dynamically in the dynamic param statement. And then what this does is it actually looks at the location you give it with the computer name and the path, changes the path to a C $, blah, 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 and appends whack, whack, host name, whack, whatever it is, and then does a get child item for anything with log, and then presents you with any one of these for you to go parse the log for it. Okay, so this works good for if you're going to use it for just like troubleshooting type of stuff. It doesn't work good if you're going to try to do it inline in code because of that problem that you have with dynamic parameters where they're actually parsed before you have your functions parsed. It's just the way PowerShell works. I haven't found a way around it other than to define your computer name parameter and your path parameter as an environment variable first, and then check to see if those two environment variables exist, then it'll work, which is kind of a hack, if you ask me. So we just pick one of these logs here. Is there any one of these that anybody has any passion around?
SMSTS.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay.
That guy is the biggest pain in the ass. I want to make a.
This one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so now if I do that, here's my SMSTS log object. Okay, so if I do, pardon me?
Sorry, I thought that was your log, that was sad.
So I'm just going to create a variable called S. Now if we look SMSTS log, okay. Ta-da, there's the logging for it. And now we can do.
Oh, Tom, you grabbed the smallest SMSTS log.
No, I think it
existed in the world.
No. I think if I remember right, in one version of my code, I actually have tail hard coded, so it only does 10.
Okay.
So I got a tail.
Yeah.
I got a tail parameter on here,
Yep.
and it's only doing 10 of the items. So so if we want just s dot message, I think that's the name. There's the message item of it. Or if we want the cool thing from the entry that my good friend Oliver sent me. He actually records 2 extra times in here, which is the UTC time and the local time, which is kind of handy. So he actually hashes it and builds it at the same time. Local, I can spell. So that was created June 3rd and 4th. So the other get CCM specific log is the same thing. The only difference is it doesn't use a dynamic parameter block. It's the only difference. So I'll show you what the dynamic parameter block looks like. PS get CCM log. All right, so here's the get CCM log. I have a blog post about this, so if you want to look at more detail about it, I would welcome any feedback. It's the last blog post I've done. I haven't had a chance to do another one. In any case, here's you have to build several items for .NET to tell .NET. This is a dynamic parameter, and here's the dynamic. Here's the validate set values is what this is doing. And then last but not least, I added some a routine in here that it checks to see if this is localhost or it's the computer name. Does a couple checks in here. If it is, then it just uses the path and grabs the log name, whatever the log name is. If it's not, then it appends. It replaces the path, and then what it does is at the end of the day, it calls get CM log. So what I'm doing in this script block 2 item right here is I'm actually grabbing this function called get CM log out of my local function library, out of my function drive, and then I'm sending that as a script block. And for whatever reason, you have to add a character return and line feed to it, get it to work. Don't ask me why, but it made it work. And so you create the script block, and then you send that to the machine to go grab the log and bundle it up.
Find the character return script. I find that's what needed to happen.
I futzed around with it until I got it what I needed. Because I actually looked at the content of the SB2 variable to see what was in there. Anyway, that's all I have for tonight. I'm going to stop the recording. If there's any other questions. Okay.
I can't remember the script. Is there a time span if you want to look for logs between a certain time?
Well, you could based on the timestamps that are in there. So the assumption is that you would use.
But there's no function per se.
No, you could write one though. You could write one.
You don't need that.
You could just write it and add it to the library. That's what collaborative coding is all about, right?
Yeah. Because I need a snapshot in time, but from every log at that time period.
So for those of you that asked me,
That would be sweet. Yeah.
the location of where this is on GitHub. It's Crash and Burn 66. And my logo for my personal website is down there in the corner. Powershell Posse is my website. I did.
Well, the cactus is for our group.
Oh, okay, right.
Powershell Posse is like the other one.
I should have put the cactus in there too, or the fancier one that he made.
Yeah. Thanks for the marketing change.
All right.
Okay.
Go to your Google IM. Google,
Okay. Good.
2 links for you to look at.
All right. Oh, you mean the Hangouts?
Good job, John.
Hang on.
Thanks, guys.
You know, we should have had that on the recording. People just think you're not worth technical.
Yeah, that's probably true, though.
So we could get a laugh track and put it in the end.
Hey, I can tell you're my friend.
Every time he finishes the question.
Yeah, right.
So not that your particular script would benefit from it. I just found this recently because it was something I was interested in. But this was using the PS drive to get around the double hop issue. So like when I was originally using this, I was used to like, we'll just go to the SCCM server and install and just run the executable with the UNC path. And of course, PowerShell remote them. That's a double hop. You can't do that. So this would get around that. So instead of having to copy the bits to the local machine, you could use this routine. If you scroll down a bit, it's You've got several examples of that.
Yeah, this guy's good. He was actually part of the Austin group just before I left.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he went to Southern California.
So it's the line and re-authenticate from the session. It's there, and it's the examples given.
Re-auth?
Yeah, re-authenticate.
Oh, right here?
There you go, yeah. So that's the example given for, it's basically setting up a PS drive and then using that to do your direct call.
Ah,
to
nice.
your executable.
Nice.
And I just found that a week ago, so I threw that. I haven't used it yet, but I threw it in the notes section of my.
Well, I kind of did that.
Yeah.
Kind of did that a
yeah.
little bit differently, though.
Yeah. And then the next one was, it's not, you're not using it in any script, but you did kind of mention it with the troubles you're having with variables with your, your parameters. Take a look at the next link I sent you. That might do it, but I found it when I was cleaning up the script to give to you that using a variable in calling to a variable that was defined locally in the PowerShell remote
This
session.
one right here?
Yeah,
This?
yeah. So scroll down to the section about local when it loads. Yeah, using local variables.
Okay.
So
Yeah, the using statement?
yeah, that's where I had to I plugged that into the script in order to pass the variable that was defined in the script locally over to the PowerShell remote session.
Yeah, that's better.
So you just, can you define?
The variable was defined in the script. And what I was trying to do was just clean up the script that I'd handed off to a couple guys, get all the local references to internal servers. So I was putting variables in the top of the script, and then I had to go back and replace it. Well, of course, this broke, but when I handed it to you, I hadn't tested it yet, but I tested it later. It's like, oh shoot, I gave Thom a broken script. So I found out.
We've all done it.
Yeah. So
No big deal.
I found out it was using passes that variable information over to the other session.
Cool.
So that might be helpful for your variables you're having troubles with in your parameters.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Well, like in this example, where I was, over here, you'll see it over here.
Here.
So like when we were starting up the CM
Here.
client installer.
Here you go.
What do we got?
This will give me a way to unplug all my shit.
I think I got it.
Need one of these?